The night grew deeper. It was particularly quiet at Auspicious Restaurant. The place wasn't as lively as in the morning. One reason was its secluded location, and the other was because it didn't operate at night. Suddenly, a muscular figure jumped over the walls. He skillfully went through the restaurant. The figure was headed to a private room on the second floor. When he arrived at the door, he gave it a light knock. "Come in," a dignified voice came from inside the pitch-black room. The figure opened the door cautiously. He immediately dropped to his knees when he got inside. Speaking toward a folding screen, he announced his arrival. "I'm here, sir. You got injured." The voice spoke again from behind the folding screen. "I failed my mission. I encountered a powerful opponent and almost lost my life." Simba lowered his head. His expression was filled with fear and respect. Blood was dripping from his wounded arm onto the ground. It sounded jarring in the silent night. "You actually dared to return after you failed." The voice turned cold. It carried a chilling undertone that crept into the air. "Sir, please give me another chance. I promise I will complete my mission." Simba trembled in fear and broke out in cold sweat. "You damned fool. Didn't you notice you've been tailed?" The voice shouted. "A tail." Simba looked around and said, "Impossible. I was careful the entire way here. Nobody could have noticed me." "Dear friend, since you're already here, there's no need to hide." The voice behind the screen grew louder. As soon as his words fell, they heard the faint sound of footsteps echoing in the corridor. Following closely, Destin entered, looking indifferent. "It's you." Simba's expression changed. He took a few steps back in fear and almost stumbled. He never expected to be followed. As an accomplished assassin, he had undergone rigorous training since young. He was also one of the best at countering surveillance. Destin must be a ghost to have been able to tell him without a sound. "It's impressive that you noticed me this quickly." Destin ignored Simba. His gaze was fixed on the screen. Any Kalak Kuvi min seated Vin, however, it was to AI Tawis is reachers. "It's even more remarkable that you were able to come within 10 feet of me." The plump man remained unmoved. "Sir, this is the guy who ruined my mission." Simba revealed. "You useless trash, get out." The chubby man shouted. "Yes, sir." Simba shrunk back slightly. Without another word, he excused himself. Destin ignored him, allowing him to leave as he pleased. "Sir, do I have the pleasure of talking face to face?" Destin spoke again. Of course, the chubby man waved. The lights turned on, and the folding screen was brought down. The moment their gazes met, the both of them were stunned. Mr. Reese, Mr. Franklin. Destin was surprised to see the chubby man before him. He realized that Simba's envoy was Samuel Franklin. He was the person who sold the Jade Maiden scripture. "Mr. Reese, I didn't expect fate to lead us to meet under these circumstances," Samuel said with a smile. His previous cold and chilling demeanor returned to one of gentleness. He appeared harmless and friendly. "Mr. Franklin, you have quite the identity." Destin narrowed his eyes. "I've heard that the bounty killers have 3 chief envoys. Each of them is known for their incredible power and abilities. I didn't expect you to be one of them. I'm just making a living." "It's nothing worth mentioning." Samuel smiled and made a gesture. "Mr. Reese, please have a seat." Destin didn't hesitate and took a seat. "Mr. Reese, I'm impressed by your victory over Augustus Klein. Your reputation as a young grandmother has shaken the world." Samuel brewed a pot of tea and poured it into 2 cups. "Mr. Franklin, you're very well informed. You've heard about what happened in no time." Destin took a sip of tea. Samuel laughed. "If I had remained oblivious to such a shocking event, I might as well retire from my role as an envoy." His smile was unwavering. "Mr. Franklin, I'll get straight to the point. Was Sheila your target today?" Destin looked up at him, slightly. He had been tailing Simba to search for the truth. Christopher Murray was an old friend of his mother's. He had also helped him out on 2 occasions in the past. Moreover, considering Sheila's kindness, he felt he should involve himself in this matter. "That's right. Franklin didn't deny it. Solving people's troubles and getting paid is the bounty killer's code. Can you cancel the mission? Dustin inquired. No, unless the employer chooses to withdraw it themselves. Samuel shook his head. Wine is the employer. Dusalasku Didi. That is classified information. I can't tell you. Samuel continued to shake his head. Mr. Franklin, you keep withholding information. Are you forcing me to flip this table? Dustin narrowed his eyes. Mr. Reese, please stay calm. The Bounty Killers has its own set of rules. Disclosing the identity of the employer is strictly forbidden. However, at that moment, Samuel changed his tone. While I can't reveal the employer's identity, I can offer you another piece of information. I believe it'll catch your interest. What kind of information? Dustin raised an eyebrow. I have a lead on Paul Hill's death. Samuel dropped a bombshell. Dustin's gaze hardened. You know who the killer is. Paul Hill's death had put him under tremendous pressure for the past few days. Even when he had mobilized everyone in the Kieran gang, he could not find a single lead. While I can't say for sure, I do have some information. Samuel chuckled. Who is it? Who exactly had Sir Paul killed? Dustin asked in a low voice. Paul Hill's death has something to do with the Shadow Slayers from Kimboku. Samuel explained, according to our investigation. One of Shadow Slayer's 5 elite assassins, Dimitri Gonzalez, has infiltrated Dragon Marsh recently. He's been active around Valerno too. Paul Hill's death likely has something to do with him. Is this Dimitri Gonzalez that good? Dustin frowned. As an elite assassin, he's indeed powerful. He has already reached the level of a grandmother 5 years ago. Samuel explained. This doesn't make sense. If we go by what you're saying, Dimitri alone wouldn't stand a chance against Sir Paul. Dustin's expression turned serious. Dimitri had only broken through the level of a grandmother 5 years ago. Normally, Dimitri's skills should only be between that of a novice, grandmother and an intermediate grandmother. In contrast, Paul Hill was already a full-fledged grandmother. It would be difficult for him to succeed in an ambush or an assassination attempt. Mr. Reese, you're very sharp. It's truly remarkable. Samuel smiled. Indeed, Dimitri couldn't have done it himself. However, there is a traitor within the Hill family. A traitor. Dustin's brow furrowed. He almost yelled, Who? This traitor has been very good at hiding himself. There haven't been any slip-ups so far. Samuel shook his head. He continued, One thing for sure. They hold significant influence within the Hill family. They're either one of the Hill Brethren or someone from the main family. The Hill Brethren consisted of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. They were also Paul Hill's 4 sons. Each one held substantial resources and had ambitious goals. They were also smart in politics. You might as well not have said anything. Dustin frowned. There are so many people in the Hill family. How could I find a traitor in such a short time? He had his suspicions before, but he couldn't find any concrete evidence. Relax, Mr. Reese. It isn't exactly hard to find out who the traitor is. However, you would have to take a little risk. Samuel smiled meaningfully. Oh, do you have a plan, Mr. Franklin? Dustin was interested. It isn't exactly a brilliant plan. It's just a matter of using bait. Samuel dipped his index finger into his tea. Then he made a few marks on the table. After reading them, Dustin nodded in contemplation. That seems like a plan, but I wonder if it will work. Just do your best and leave the rest to destiny, Samuel said. Thank you for your advice, Mr. Franklin. Dustin nodded thoughtfully. He asked, How much is this information worth? It's free. Let's consider it the start of our friendship. Samuel replied with a friendly smile. It's not easy to become my friend. I'll consider you one if you tell me who is behind. Sheila's bounty. Dustin began negotiating. Mr. Reese, please don't put me in a difficult position. Samuel chuckled and shook his head. If the client's information leaks, I won't have any more business in the future.